Good afternoon, Professor Carlos Carrillo. This is the student Eduardo Pello, and today I'm gonna make a little presentation about women in French history. I would like to, I would have liked to put the presentation in the video, but I couldn't because, if I'm honest with you, I'm not really good at technology. But I will send you the presentation by email, and in the presentation I will link the video. So if you're watching this, it means you have watched everything. So, well, now I'm gonna tell you my content. The first thing, it will be the introduction. The next one, the history written by men. The third one, women who shaped the history of France. The fourth one, the real role of women in French history. The fifth one, my conclusion. And finally, the bibliography. Okay, give me a second. Okay, the introduction. Why talk about women in history, in French history? Well, for centuries, history has been told almost entirely from a male perspective. In textbooks, the heroes, the discoveries, and the revolutions are usually associated with men. But that doesn't mean women weren't there. It means they were often ignored, forgotten, or silenced. But they were always there. I think, and I say, women did everything for us, for our story. And it doesn't matter the country, it doesn't matter the city, the town, it doesn't matter the place. This happened around the world, not just only in France. This happened in Colombia, and I could say a lot of examples. Women have been always subjugated by men. And this presentation is born from a desire to rescue those voices that were left in shadows, to tell history from another angle. The women who changed France, who changed the world, because that made history for all of us. The women who broke the rules, who dared to think differently and act even when it cost them their lives, their recognition, or their freedom. Because when a woman spoke, she was a witch. She was a crazy woman. They said the men. And what did they do? They burned them. They judged them. They destroyed their lives. Men to women. Now, history written by men. The silencing of women. Throughout time, men occupied spaces of power, politics, science, philosophy, war. And since they were the ones writing the books and making the decisions, they also decided which names were worth remembering and which ones weren't. Many women were reduced to secondary roles. If they were brave, they were called crazy, as I said. If they were intelligent, they were called witches. If they knew something that the men didn't, they were called witches. And there are a lot of stories, real stories about that. It was said that someone helped them if they wrote. When a woman did or said something intelligent, the men said that they were helped by other people. If they wrote, they were muses, not authors. Even when they made great discoveries or fought for justice, Their achievements were minimized or worse, punished. They were sent to the jail only because they did or said something that the men weren't ready to hear. But they weren't ready to hear that because a woman said it. It's not about the information, it's not about the thought, it's not about that. It's about who did or said that. A woman. But despite all those obstacles, many women left an unforgettable mark on French history. Well, now I'm gonna talk about the women who changed the French history, who helped, who did a lot of things in French history, good or bad, it doesn't matter, but they did something. Okay, the women I have a lot of women here. The first one, Joan of Arc. She was a young peasant girl who, guided by visions, led the French army against the English during the 100 Years' War. At 19, she was captured and sentenced to death for heresy. She was burned alive. Today, she is considered a saint and a national heroine. As I said before, when a woman did or said something, she was called a witch, and this is the case. She did something. She led the French army against the English during the 100 Years' War, and for that reason, she was burned. Wow. That says a lot of men. The second one, and my favorite, Marie Antoinette. Okay, she was the Queen of France during the French Revolution, often accused of being superficial or frivolous. She became the target of public and political hatred. She was harshly judged for being a woman in power and was executed by guillotine. Her story reflects how society tends to judge women in power more severely than men. So this is the case when a man does something, it's good. It doesn't matter if it's bad or it's good. For the people it's good. But when a woman does it, wow, that's pretty bad. And what do they do? They kill them. They kill her. They killed her because she said something that it's told in histories. She said, "Let them eat cake." And I know there are a lot of things that, well, she's not an heroine, but I think she's not a villain. Well, if I'm honest with you, I think everyone is a villain in another story, in another person's story. But what I want to say, what I mean is that men has a lot of power when they do something. But when a woman does it, it's bad. But when a man does it, it's good. I think it doesn't. That's not fair. My third woman, Olympe de Gouges. She was a writer, an activist during the French Revolution. She wrote the Declaration of the Rights of Woman and of the Female Citizen, demanding equal rights. She was executed for opposing male power and defending women's political roles. In that time, the women couldn't defend their rights. And if they did, they were murdered. So, for example, if I was a woman, sorry, if I said this is not right, something that a man said, well, they executed me only for that. Only for that. So, well, the next one, George Sand, my fourth woman. She was a famous writer who dressed as a man to move freely and publish without prejudice. She used a male pseudonym so her work would be taken seriously. She challenged all social norms of her time. Well, this is the woman. This is a woman that I admire so much because I think she did a lot that other women would have liked to do. She was dressed by my men because she said, well, if I'm not being taken seriously, well, I'm gonna dress as them. As them. So she did. She's an iconic. The next one, Marie Curie, one of the most important scientists in history. She discovered radium and polonium, won 2 Nobel Prizes, and paved the way for thousands of women in science, at a time when many universities didn't even allow women to study. Simone de Beauvoir, philosopher and writer, author of The Second Sex, where she analyzed how women have been oppressed by patriarchal systems. One of the most influential figures of modern feminism. Simone Weil, a Holocaust survivor, politician, and the first woman to preside over the European Parliament. She played a key role in legalizing abortion in France in 1975. She defended human rights and women's dignity throughout her life. What was the real role of women in French history? Okay, women didn't just accompany historical processes; they lived them, led them, and even sparked them. From battlefields to science labs, from literary salons to political protests, they were there, often risking everything. They risked their lives only to be there, to be part of it. Sometimes they couldn't speak, they couldn't do anything, but they had to be the shadows. They had to be the shadows of the men, to be a little part of it. This role was essential. They fought for freedom, challenged norms, pushed for laws, created art, and proved that courage, talent, and thought know no gender. If we speak of equality today, it's thanks to the women who stood up in a world that told them, you can't. The women had to create a way for them because the men always ignored them. They created their way. Yeah, the men, I mean. But they ignored the women. They said, you are not important. You cannot do what I do. You belong to the house, to the children. You cannot do anything, not as me. They said, that said the men. But now, equality is, well, I would like to say in everywhere, but that's not true. Today we can see a lot of machismo in the word. I said French word, if you notice that. But yeah, men has to be in everywhere, and the woman has to be in the kitchen, has to be in the house. That's what men say. But I'm sorry if if I'm saying all of the men, because that's not true. It exists men that they are love, they are really cute, they are really good person, they are men, good men. Because when a man thinks in that way, like a woman cannot do what I do, a woman has to belong to the house, that's not a man. If I'm honest, that's not a man. Well, my conclusion of this presentation is that we need to remember these women. And these women is not just about justice. It's also about changing how we understand history. It's learning to look beyond the big male names and recognize the power of those who were made invisible. Sorry. If there's a Napoleon, there's a woman. If there's well, I'm not good at history, but when a man exists, there's a woman behind. Always. It doesn't matter the case, it doesn't matter anything, but it will be always a woman behind a man. Always. So remember, women has changed the history too. Not just men. And everyone has to know names. Female names, not male names. Because if you see when you go to the school, you can remember all of the male names. But what about the female names? What about the women who changed history? What about them? If you notice that, today we can see this purchase. Sorry. So we need to change that. We need to get better with every day. We need to get better every day. So that's my reflection. We need to remember all of the female names, all the women who changed history. So, well, and finally, my bibliography. As I said, you can watch it on the presentation. So, thank you for everything, and thank you. And don't forget the female names. Thank you, Professor. That was everything.